Hello again to the second video. This is video 2 of multiple videos where we're going to build one-to-many relationship using state and cities. And I'm about now to move from the state that I designed, as you've seen in the previous video, where I did actually make the state abbreviation as the primary key. I did the population, size, and region. I limited the number of the field names to only 5 because you could add as many as you want. So now is the time to move to the many, which is the city, as we stated earlier. Notice here when I did mention this, talked about the state, I didn't mention whatsoever anything about the city. That's the healthy way of building a database from scratch. Of course, our job also to learn how to fix something that didn't really go in the right approach. Like some people design databases very poorly, and then we have to really change it later and how to fix it. But this is the right way of thinking. So what we're going to do is to move again now to add another table. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and to the ribbon create, and I'm going to start the table. You can start with the table design and just click on the table. It doesn't matter. Then you click on the design. It doesn't matter. So we're going to go ahead and say TBL in cities. I'm going to go ahead and use the plural of city to indicate that city is the many in the table. I mean, this is not a must, but it's a convention. It's a way of helping yourself to be a little bit more organized. And you're learning this is from scratch. So a habit that could be developed in a healthy manner would be very helpful for the long run. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And now, if I want to grow with this database to include additional entities where they're going to be a relationship between them and the city, like for example, the name of the museum or the name of the university that falls within the boundary of a specific city, then the city suddenly would become the one and the list of the universities will become the many. It would be helpful at that time to think about an artificial key that pertains to the city that is going to help us to recall it. You could really do it based on like the first 2 letters of the state with the combination of the first 2 digits when that city was established. And you could really create something that is very powerful and meaningful at the same time. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to stick with the ID, which is an auto number by default, as the primary key for the city. As you will see, we're not going to need it for establishing the relationship. That's only to count for us the number of the city. But again, if the city was to be established with another relationship, then we might have to create our own valid, more reliable primary key. Again, the database give it to me, ID, auto number, and also give me for free, as you notice, the primary key, which I could easily remove or add. So I'm going to leave it. And now we're going to move into the city name. And I'm going to leave it as a short text, but I'm going to limit it to 30. And and I'm going to go ahead and also say the size of the city. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing we did in the lookup wizard. But let me go ahead and change this to actually 10. And we're going to go to the lookup wizard, and I'm going to type this one here. I'm going to type it. I'm going to say here really large city, medium, small, and maybe tiny, very small, tiny one. So we're going to go ahead and limit that to list. And again, we're going to go ahead and say the crime rate, which is in this case, it's going to be also maybe 10 is going to be enough. We could say here, I will type it high crime rate or very high crime rate, high, and somewhere in the middle, medium or middle. somewhere in the middle, and low or even very low. Some tiny towns are very safe. So we're going to go ahead and continue with this, and also I'm going to go ahead and say population. And remember, we have the population for the state, and now we're going to have a population for the city, which is both are the same attribute name, but it doesn't matter because each one of those within a different table, different entity, and it doesn't matter. As you will see, the database will help us or remind us which one of those two tables actually this population belong to. So I'm going to go ahead and make it also a number, as you noticed, and I could go ahead and also put additional pieces of information, like the date they joined the establishment day, not the state is the union, but here the city is like really when it was established. And I don't want to really fake data at this moment, so I'm going to stick only with those. And the moments that we need to really create the link between the two tables has come for us to deal with it at this moment. So if you notice here, I had the ID for the city. I have the city name, which I should actually change it in the caption to make it look good when I do actually do the report later. So city name, and also the same thing for crime rate. Anyway, notice that none of these has anything to do with the state. Everything that we have done is completely and utterly belong to the city. So how do we actually link the city to know, like Austin falls within Texas, Miami within Florida, Baltimore within Maryland? So if you recall, and please take this next 2 minutes very, very carefully, and if you need to rewind and play the video again, please do. If you notice, this is the many relationship. In the state, I'm going to, of course, save it. If I change the view, it's going to say save it, so I'm going to save it. And if I go back to the state, as you notice here, I have the primary key is the state abbreviation. That's the primary key for the one table. Now, the city table has its own primary key, which is the ID. Both of them could never, ever be repeated on these two tables. So I could never have more than one state abbreviation in that state table. I could never have an ID with the same value in the city table. That is completely violates the definition of a primary key. So what we need to do in order to link the two tables is to put the state abbreviation in the from the one table in the many table. So I'm going to put here the state abbreviation, which must also be the same exact, it must be exactly the same data type. It doesn't have to be like the same length, to be honest with you, but it's better to really have it the same even format, just to remind yourself that this is basically those two values must be the same. The state abbreviation is not part of the city, so therefore it's going to be called the foreign key, meaning it's a primary key in the one table that I brought it, I dragged it, I pulled it from the one table to the many table in order for the establishment of the relationship to link the two tables. The state abbreviation never ever part of the city. However, I need to bring it from the one table as a foreign key, which by the way can be repeated because it's not a primary key, it is a foreign key. The only purpose for the foreign key is to link the two tables. I hope this has become clear because we're going to be doing a lot of foreign keys, a lot of linkage or linking or establishing relationship between tables when it gets to many relationships. So we need to understand this concept from the very beginning. So the state abbreviation is a primary key in the state table, which is the one table that was brought to the many table in order to link the two tables together. And now it becomes here the foreign key. So now if I go back and change this to the design, and it's going to ask me to save it again, actually. If I change it to the datasheet view, it's going to ask me to save it again. And I say, oh, well, I don't need to add the ID because, as you notice, the data type for the ID is auto number. So it's going to be entered automatically. And let's go ahead and do, let's say here, Austin. And this is a large city, supposedly, or yeah. And the crime rate, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe middle. And the population, let's say 750,000. Okay, so that's going to be one more zero, I guess, or no, that's it. Then now we're going to come to that moments where we're going to say TXT, and that actually will link Austin to the table Texas. I'm sorry, the entry Texas in the table state. If I go ahead and move, say fine, no problem. If I put Miami, Miami, and this is very large with the metropolitan area, and this is very high crime rate, and let's say we included everything, so this is 2 million, 6 zeros here. Okay, and let's assume by mistake I wasn't aware that Miami falls in Florida, and if I put it Texas, it will allow me, and that's a human and logical error because Texas does exist. However, if you notice now, if I put Maryland, it will still allow me to do it. Why? We didn't cover this in the class because I did not establish the relationship between them. I did not enforce the referential integrity. So this is a major issue to avoid. You should not actually enter data unless you establish the referential integrity between the two tables. We did do half of the work by putting the primary key from the one table as the foreign key in the money, but we have to link the two tables. So what are we going to do? First of all, I'm going to take this out because it's going to cause me real problem, as you will notice if I do this, because it says you're establishing something that doesn't exist. So I'm going to leave it here without putting the state abbreviation. It will allow me with the Texas because the Texas already exists. If I put here Florida, it will allow me to establish it because Florida already exists in the state. So how are we going to establish the link? We're going to go to the database tool. We're going to go to the relationship. And notice I'm going to add both of them. I always add the one to the left. And I'm going to add the other, the many to the right. And I'm going to say close here. Then look. This is the one in the state. I'm going to drag it to the state abbreviation in the table city. And I'm going to enforce referential integrity, meaning I could never add Miami to that city unless I have Florida already in that state table. And I would never be able to mention Maryland along with the Florida unless Maryland has been added. Of course, Miami should not be in Maryland. That's a logical error. But I could never add Baltimore, for example, which really in Maryland, unless I have the state of Maryland already established. Cascade update related field. It's a great idea to check it in case you made a mistake. And once you corrected it through the database, it's going to reflect that it changes, like somebody's address, somebody's last name in the one table, or even you misspelled a state name, and once you correct it, it will be corrected directly. The cascade delete related record, that's something really has to be thought about, whether you really need to eliminate all the sons and the daughters belongs to a mother, meaning all the manys in a table that belongs to the one tables when you delete the one, or do you want to leave them? I'm going to leave it alone here But notice the relationship established as one-to-many, and I'm going to go ahead and say create. Notice that both the primary key coming from the state and the city table actually showing me this is the foreign key. Now I could establish the relationship. Could not table city because it's already open. I did the same mistake in the class. I'm going to go ahead and close everything, which is something we need to do. I'm going to save this, but I'm going to close everything in order for the relationship to be established. I'm going to go to the database tools again where the relationship are there, and then we're going to go ahead and establish the referential integrity, the cascade update, and create, and here we go. As you notice, one to infinity or one to many. Now let's go ahead and go back to the city table. As you notice, if I put this Maryland, that's, here we go. Well, look what will happen if I tab to go to the next one. So listen, you cannot add or change a record because a related record is required in the table state. So therefore, I cannot add Maryland unless Maryland does exist. Of course, that's two type of problems. Miami should never be part of Maryland, and that's a human error. Of course, we need to be aware of the logical error that we make. If Maryland existed, and you are actually adding the state abbreviation Maryland, it will allow you to do it. That would be a very major error on the human side. Anyway, let's go ahead and put another one here, and we're going to say Houston. And this is a very large city. Maybe we only had large crime rate, let's say high, and I don't know, 4 million people there. Here we go, and that is Texas. In order for me to add Baltimore to this one here, I need to go to the state and add Baltimore. But I'm going to leave this Maryland later for a better way of doing the entry, because we really should not give the user or the end user who's going to use our database any chance to enter the data through the table. This is only for us, we the designers who do actually the planning and the analysis and the design for the database. We will let the user enter the data into another format. It's called the forms, which is much prettier scene for them, and of course that protect our database design that almost, as we all know, is absolutely found in the tables. Tables are the most important things of all the databases because they are the foundation. I will see you in the next video. I know this is another video that went a little bit too long. I apologize up front, but I don't want to really chop it off or cut it in the middle of the idea. So hopefully you will continue to watch it to the end, and I will see you in the third video. Hopefully it will be shorter. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the third video.